Today on Earth Focus, as the world's population grows and the environment changes, it's women who are most severely affected. Coming up on Earth Focus. The world's population reached 7 billion in 2011, and it is growing. It will top 9 billion in just 40 years.
We know that already the global population of 7 billion is exerting a very clear degree of stress on limited environmental resources.
And if we at this size world population have unbelievable inequality throughout the world, unbelievable injustice, gross violation of human rights happening the world over, how is that going to get better with an increased world population? Especially one that has been increasing so rapidly and so exponentially.
So population matters to climate change.
It's not about sort of controlling population. It's about giving women the tools they need, because we found time and time again that when you give women the tools, they make the right decisions. They opt for smaller families. They opt for as many kids as they can feed, take care of from a health perspective, and send to school. And the way that you make sure that formula plays out in a way that works is by giving women the tools they need around family planning.
Washington-based Population Action International promotes access to contraception. Their new film, Weathering Change, looks at the impact of environmental change on the lives of women.
Weathering Change tells compelling sets of stories of women from Peru, Nepal, and Ethiopia. And when you look at this documentary, you will hear the woman say, our burden as a woman is heavy. Our life is difficult. Climate change makes it all the more difficult. A number of studies, including work that we have done in Population Action International, have highlighted that women are at the forefront of climate change impacts. They are disproportionately affected by the negative impacts of climate change.
Today, any problem we have is linked to the changing weather. We had a good standard of life growing up. My father used to get 500 to 600 kilos per harvest, but now we can barely get 100. Even though the land is green, it's not fruitful. It has never been like this.
The science has very clearly demonstrated that we as human beings are having a negative impact on the environment. And what's significant is that those CO2 emissions, those carbon dioxide emissions, are having negative impacts on us and our well-being, in addition to the natural systems and ecosystems and how they function. And what we've seen when we look at global population trends is that most of the CO2 emissions are coming from from the more industrialized countries, like the United States, where there are high consumption levels. Most of the population growth is occurring in developing countries, where there are more people who are being at the front lines of the negative impacts. And this really does raise the critical issue of our ability to adapt to these climate change impacts.
Because it used to rain seasonally, we had our usual harvest. But now, because of the erratic weather, with the rain not following seasonal patterns, the harvest has decreased and it's affecting our livelihood. The only way we can raise our kids is from the land. If the land fails to produce, there isn't enough to feed them. I get really sad when they go hungry.
The links with climate change are irrefutable in my mind, both on the mitigation side. I think that's of interest to a lot of people if you have a smaller world population and also a world population that's consuming less and not consuming like Americans consume, that you can positively impact carbon emissions reductions. More critically, in this moment, today, is the idea that family planning and reproductive health make women and their families stronger, healthier, wealthier, and more resilient, therefore less vulnerable to climate change impacts that are already happening.
We have to plant trees and vegetation to stop erosion. We have to create irrigation so that water doesn't destroy the crops. We have to work and achieve change for ourselves. But work alone isn't the answer. For example, in one household, there can be 10 or 8 children. I'm a volunteer at the health center. I feed hungry children and teach family planning to their parents. When they have children every year, it hurts them. When they use contraception and space births every 3 to 5 years, the mothers get stronger. And their children also grow up with the needed strength and care. Due to climate change, mothers have understood that spacing their children is in their own best interest. A woman's burden is great. She doesn't have a break from morning to night. She works and carries a heavy load. A woman's life is hard, and climate change is making it harder.
We know that investing in voluntary family planning will help bring down population numbers, which ultimately will help reduce CO2 emissions, and we need to also think about consumption levels. So population matters to climate change. It's critical both from a mitigation and adaptation perspective. We know that globally 215 million women in developing countries would like to use contraception, would like to use family planning, would like to have access to family planning services and are not currently using. That's a huge number. So if we were able to provide these women with the voluntary services that they themselves want, studies have clearly illustrated that when women have access to these services, they decide that they would like to have less children. They space their children, greater intervals between their children, and they begin to invest in themselves and increase education and opportunities for themselves, particularly earning power.
It comes down from the mountains and forms a river. And without this river, where will we get the water?
Eso viene del hielo.
It comes from the ice. Without water, we cannot live. Not plants, not animals, not us. When I was a girl, the snow caps were really white with a lot of ice. Now you can see the ice is not there. We're worried that over time, we might not even have water to drink. There is no other place to get drinking water. Little by little, it's going away. It's melting.
मलाई अनुभव भए देखिन जुन 15-16 वर्षदेखि यतातिर यिनी सूर्यको तापक्रम त्यसपछि पानीको वर्षायामको फेरबदल मौसम फेरबदल धेरै फरक म पाएको छु किन पानी पर्न त पर्छ तर बिना मौसमको जतिखेर पानीको चाह हुन्छ त्यतिखेर पानी पर्न कि कहिले अघि कहिले पछि एक्कासी पानी पर्ने अनि यो खेतीपातीहरूमा धेरै हामीहरूलाई सयमा 25% को खाना पुग्छ 75% नै बाहिर कोही इन्डियातिर जाने र मजदुरी गर्ने के यहाँका महिलाको अवस्था त उही हो सबै महिलामाथि पुरुष
We too often, or too seldom I should say, hear from the reality on the ground. What's happening to small island nations? What's happening in countries where rainfall patterns have changed so dramatically that crops aren't yielding what they used to? That's, for me, that's the heart of climate change. So we too seldom include those voices, that truth testing in international decision making. We also too seldom include the voice of women, who are unbelievable agents of change, who have throughout their existence been forced to find innovative and creative solutions to problems. Think of your mom, think of your sisters, your aunts, people who put beautiful dinners on the table in the time of resource scarcity. I mean, women are inventors. They're unbelievable advocates for themselves, their families, and their communities. So why don't we really make sure that the mechanisms exist so that their perspective is heard as part of those decision-making arenas?
महिलाहरूलाई अझ यो भन्दा अझ अलिकति उसमा हरेक कुरामा जानकारी होस् उनीहरूलाई शिक्षा स्वास्थ्य यो जलवायु परिवर्तनको बारेमा मान्छेको जीवनसँग सम्बन्धित भएको कारणले आफूलाई त यस्तो महसुस भइराखेको छ भने आउने पिढीलाई कस्तो होला त्यही भएर म अति नै चिन्तित हुन्छु
I'm from Ayacucho. There, we would walk the land, plant the crops. I really like it there. I liked milking my cow and drinking it straight away. Before, there was corn, enough to eat, but not anymore. The grass is drying up and dying. That's why we are here.
If we held the population at the current level and had people continue to consume and aspire to consume like Americans do, we're in trouble. It's a huge ask of well-off communities to have them think about scaling back, sort of minimizing, buying green, going with electric cars. I mean, we have seen in the last 10 years a huge energy around this green movement here in the United States, but some would argue that it's come too late, that we needed that energy 30 years ago. I think it's a good thing, and I think that momentum should continue and build. But I think we also need to think about the energy consumption of an American family overnight being practically what the energy consumption of a Tanzanian family is over 1 year. And those people deserve to get out of energy poverty. And at the global level, we're going to have to figure out that imbalance at a world population of 7 billion or 10 billion. So it's back to that inequality equation and how we've got some really tough decisions in front of us.